I would not minimize as some do online. Oh, it's just going to be a couple of years, less than that, whatever. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. However, as you mentioned, oh my gosh, it could have been so much worse.
This podcast is sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you could find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geo area, country, state, city. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. If you want to find out more, head over to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. So hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of once again speaking with the one and only Mark Rizzn Hopkins. How's it going, man?
Hey, pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, and my life is going great, and unfortunately I can't always say the same for everyone else in the crypto space. Kind of the reason for this chat is the Roman Storm Tornado Cash trial just wrapped up in New York, and he was not convicted on 2 of the 3 charges, the biggest ones, the ones that I'm very glad that that didn't happen. So I feel like it was a kind of favorable verdict in some ways, but then he did get a unlicensed money transmission conviction, which I'm not sure if there's been any sentencing. It could be up to 5 years, which I hate to say that's better than the other options, but it's still like a very not desirable option. Alexei Pertsev, his colleague in the Netherlands, did get convicted and sentenced to 5 years for, I guess, money laundering. I think the charge was. In his case, he's out on appeal, and it looks like Roman is also out on appeal, and he's going to try to appeal and get that overturned, etc. But so, what are your thoughts? Just start there on this whole thing.
I mean, I'll never minimize people's reticence to even undergo a potential 5-year sentence or even less, because I, as you know, as many of the viewers know, I was staring down the barrel of one of those myself. And if you're not somebody who is, I don't know if streetwise is the word, but if you're not been around like prison and criminal culture most of your life, which is probably most of us, even spending 5 minutes in prison seems like something that is not just insanely disruptive to your life, but also kind of like those of us that perhaps pursue white collar pursuits, let's put it that way, for most of our life, we're probably brought up by parents that said, your career begins in school when you're taking the right classes to get the right grades. Everything's going to go on your permanent record, and then getting a felony is kind of the ultimate dark mark on your permanent record. It grates against everything you are as a person, most likely. If you're in a position to be a crypto martyr, right? So all that to say, I would not minimize as some do online. Oh, it's just going to be a couple of years, less than that, whatever. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. However, as you mentioned, oh my gosh, it could have been so much worse. Not only is so at first run, I guess I just wasn't paying it. I thought I was paying attention to the case closer than I was, because I thought he was being that third charge that he was convicted under, or the jury found him guilty for, was 18 U.S.C. 1960. It's actually, if it could possibly be any worse, it is actually worse. It's conspiracy for 18 U.S.C. 1960. So it's like,
So he
18
didn't
U.S.C.
do it.
1960 is a crime of not filling out a piece of paper. Conspiracy to commit 18 U.S.C. 1960 is you're part of a people who had ill intent to not fill out a piece of paper. I mean, could you go to prison for anything that's more bullshit? I don't think you could.
So that's something that's very, like, this is where, like, we talk about the U.S. justice system, right? We talk about, and obviously justice systems around the world too. One a naive person, especially before the last, I guess the drug war kind of era, would have thought that the U.S. is sort of the global gold standard for justice, as far as like, and of course, as with history, the deeper you dig, the more you realize that there is no like black and white like that. That the U.S. justice system has always been horrendous, but so is the rest of the world. So it's hard to make those estimations of who's worse. That being said, so this seems like it falls under the, you get a fair day in court. Usually it's not going to be too bad. This seems like one of those capricious things. Like, as in the government did not, they weren't passively brought this case where they're just like, all right, this guy says you stabbed him. You said it was self-defense, you that. And then they just like figure it out and you probably will get a fair shake. This is more like the government's trying to nail you to a cross on a technicality for things that have nothing to do with something. So to go to the bullshit of this thing, right? People, present company, unfortunately included, might have gone to prison for failure to fill out a piece of paper that was not at all clear that you had to do it. That is already, as we've covered on this channel before, complete nonsense. But then conspiracy to do it and not even do it. First of all, do you think this charge has a serious chance of being overturned in appeal?
So I mean, if I have been friends with Roman up close, like I understand what people are telling him. This is the significance of this. The fact that he got all the way through trial and all he was convicted of was something
Mm-hmm.
that carried a potential 5-year sentence. I would have said, "Oh my gosh, count your lucky stars. Do not appeal. Call it a day." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, again, I'm not a lawyer. The way that the way his trial ended was a little squirrely because the government can reserve the right to retry the two things he wasn't convicted on because the jury was deadlocked and the judge said we can accept a mixed sentence, which is, I mean, irregular to me. But
Mm-hmm.
but like there were two types of people when I was locked up. I was locked up with, and one type was people who took a plea deal like me and got a very short sentence, and usually were there in and out in less than 3 years. And there were people that fought their sentence that had a 7 to 10 year you know uh, sentence on their hands, and mostly ends up being a that ends up being kind of like the story of you don't fight the feds. They have a 97% win rate. Yeah, you can win a case in America, but usually what people don't think about, or what you don't kind of get unless you are in the system, is those are state cases. State cases are winnable for a variety of reasons, but the feds have such a stranglehold on the criminal justice system that it's frankly impossible to win a case. The fact that Roman did win a case speaks to how poorly put together this particular case against him was, and the jurisdiction that the prosecution shopped to put in also was particularly uh, unfavorable to Roman. The judge was very pro prosecution, and SDNY is well known as being a place where a lot of intelligence community people go to retire. So they're going to be very statist, very pro government on pretty much any case. So, on the one hand, it's very likely in an appeal he's going to get a more favorable court. But on the other hand, it's to me, in my what I've seen experience, I mean, what he got was wild, an aberration. People don't win cases; they fight against the federal government. So, I mean, this will go down in history as being unique in that case. To me, I would be, it's like when you're at the casino and you're up $20, you're like, do I just spend all the money on the slot machines and try to keep winning, or do I just say, hey, I won $20 at the casino and go home? It's not winning $20 at the casino isn't like winning $1,000. You're not happy, but you're like, I didn't lose anything, I didn't lose a lot, right? So I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. I hate to kind of trivialize it by using a gambling metaphor, but that's a
Yeah.
little bit like what it is.
I mean, you're gambling with your life when you do that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it does, like, obviously, this could be like an 8 hour conversation if we're trying to redo the American justice system, we kind of envision it. But I could, like, to my estimation, the fact of plea bargaining does seem to be really messed up. Like in my estimation, you should never plea bargain. The only bargain you should do with the feds or whoever is after convicting, like say, what can I do to lessen my sentence? What can I do to help you guys out to lessen my sentence? That isn't saying I did it or not. That's something like, can I work with you to help identify like co-conspirators? Can I do some certain rehab work? Can I consult with you to like on blockchain analytics or something? Can I do just something to help you out? Therefore, to do like restitution, kind of. Even if even if you didn't do it, even if you're an innocent convicted person, at least like I think that should be where the bargaining comes in, is cooperation afterwards, not necessarily should I do it or not, did I do it or not, because
I mean, in a perfect world, yeah. I would agree with that.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, intensely complicated system. So and this also comes right on the heels, like literally a week after the principal individual involved with the Samurai Wallet case pled guilty, rather took the plea deal rather than fight it, I guess, to I guess similar charges. I'm actually looking up right now, kind of what they were. As far as I remember, they were. It
They
was
were the
also,
18 USC 1960 charges. Yeah.
yes. So they pled guilty to doing that, not conspiracy to do that, but to actually laundering,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Well, no, yeah, not the conspiracy. And 18 USC 1960 is not laundering either.
Hmm.
That's just failure
Or
to register a
transmission,
money
yeah.
transmitter business. Not failure to license a money transmitter business, failure to register. It literally is a free form on a website.
Yes. And so they,
Which, again, for a smart contract or for something like what Samurai or uh, I don't. I think my case was far more clear cut than either one of theirs. So I'll say three things in response to the Samurai thing you brought up. So my case was I was selling Bitcoin peer to peer, didn't register as a money transmitter, and about 6 months before my particular offense, FinCEN had issued a memo
hmm
that said people like me should register. In the case of Roman Storm and any of his friends over at Tornado Cash, and in the case of Samourai Wallet, they were doing something different. Most of your listeners probably already know, but if they don't, they were operating something like a mixer, which is to say that something that offers financial privacy. It was completely hands off. You don't have to like. It was smart contract based in the case of Tornado Cash. So it wasn't as if they were actively picking and choosing clients. It was just a service that was available to anybody. There is no guidance anywhere from FinCEN or from any other law enforcement body that should be considered a money transmitter.
yeah.
So in my case, it was very difficult for me to say, under the way American justice system work, American laws work, that I was not guilty. I could look at that memo and go, well, it says I'm guilty right there in that memo. But
hmm
in the case of Roman Storm and in the case of Samurai Wallet,
Yeah.
there's nothing there that says, "Oh, you should have done this. You should have known." Right? It was
hmm
just the government truly picking and choosing a case to try to set a precedent with. Thankfully, with the plea deal, that doesn't technically set precedent with the Samurai deal. However, losing in court can set a precedent, and so that's why people have been watching the Roman case much more closely than the Samurai case.
Yeah, because you've actively fought it to the end. And so,
Mhm.
according to this quick search, the founders of Samurai Wallet, Rodriguez and Hill, each pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to operate a money transmitting business, knowing that the
Oh, it
business
is conspiracy.
transmitted crime proceeds. The charge was brought under 18 USC 371, General Conspiracy
Hmm.
Statute, and 18 USC 1960, Prohibition of Unlicensed Money Transmitting Businesses. So, and let's see, as part of the plea deal, a separate charge of conspiracy, again, to commit money laundering, was dismissed, which originally could carry like a 20-year sentence, of course. So it seems like almost the exact same thing, but it does seem like the pleading to the conspiracy was, let's just, I mean, obviously there's there's so many human elements in both these cases, but for a second, let's just say that they're completely identical, and the one difference could be technical, right? Where Samurai Wallet operated a permissionless open source system that allowed people to do whatever. But a couple things to me seem different on the technical side of things. First of all, it
Right.
could be shut down. They could shut it down. Whereas a smart contract on Ethereum, once deployed, is just there. You know, you can kind of, anyone can use it. And so there was that sort of like, well, you continuously operate it. Maybe that made them less bullish on their argument winning. And on the other side, they also were very much more overt in communicating, which I think that's where you get the conspiracy charge, right? About like Russian oligarchs launder your stuff through our service, and it's like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have said that.
Right.
And
Right.
it's interesting to see on the Tornado Cash case, the prosecution was really rabid about T-shirts because Roman and some other people had these Tornado Cash shirts that was like ETH here there, and it depicted something looking like a washing machine or something, and because they wore some T-shirt, the hundreds of shirts one time, they're just like, that's it. And I kind of think this is so weird to say. I kind of think that if Roman and his colleagues had never worn a T-shirt that had any kind of launder iconography on it at all, he might have just not had a conviction at all, which is wild to think.
Might be. I mean, like, so this is where conspiracy and the actual crime, I'm putting in air quotes, of failure to register is a little bit different. The threshold for what a conspiracy is far lower. Like in prison, like you talk to people, essentially it seems to be the threshold for conspiracy for most cases,
Mm-hmm.
especially conspiracy to distribute some drug, weed, or whatever. Is like you knew about it and you didn't say anything. In the letter of the law, it means that you said something to somebody in the conspiracy, your group of friends, your coworkers, whatever it is. You said something to them that said, "Hey," it indicates intent to do the thing. So if you and I start a mixer, and then we have an on the record conversation, and I say, "Hey, do you think we should register as a money transmitter? I don't want to run afoul of the law." And you go, very reasonably, "No, that's a ridiculous idea, because if we do that, then every AMM that we create, or anybody creates, is going to register as a money transmitter. It's a horrible precedent to set." And then I go, "Well, I don't want to go to prison for it. I don't want to flout the law." And you go, "Fuck the law. Conspiracy."
Yeah.
Because now you said, "I don't care what the law is. I intend to do this thing regardless of what the law says I should do." You have just committed a 5-year felony. So, and there were text messages between them when they're, like any other business partner, talking about like, what should we do to be compliant? And it was really riding the edge from what I saw of, like, obviously they because there was a point where they said, North Korean hackers or somebody was using our service, and they go, "Oh shit, what should we do?"
Mm-hmm.
And then like somebody, said the cypherpunk thing, goes, "Whatever, it's permissionless. We shouldn't do anything." There you go. That's intent.
Yeah. Although, if you say, if you say we shouldn't do anything and we can't do anything, those are kind of, you know,
I mean, but yeah, but if you're a Fed, like, your
yeah.
job is here to get a condition, a conviction, and the fact that you can't do anything is secondary to the fact that you didn't want to do anything.
So in this case, with the Roman case, it seems like, yeah, the chip stacked against him in every kind of way possible, as far as
Oh yeah.
the judge, the jurisdiction, everything.
Mhm.
Even had his the decision delayed by a few days because one of the jurors had to do a pedicure with their mother, and so they delayed because of that. This is unfortunately true, but so if now we go to appeals, right? He says he wants to appeal it. He's going to appeal it. what circumstances change during the appeal? Like, is it a different court? Is it a different jurisdiction? Would there be a new set of jurors? Is there a jury involved at all? Like, what's the kind of thing for the people who aren't intimately aware of the U.S. justice system that you know of?
Um, yeah, so it's definitely, and I don't know. I'm actually pulling up how, because there's different ways this could go. So he was an SDNY, and that means any appeal from him goes from there to the U.S. Second Court, which is in New York City. But you're not. It's not a jury trial. This is an appellate judge.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not like trying to play to a group of people that's unversed with the laws, and you're not trying to retry the case. Um, so, and this, none of this can happen. None of this can be appealed until the sentencing occurs too, which
Mm-hmm.
is going to be. Um, yeah, which I thought happened with the same. No, that's not the same jury, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll see. We'll see how that happens. But the sentencing will have to occur. Then everyone has to decide if they want to do. You got a long period of time before this appeal is even going to happen. I was told the reason why I should never appeal, I should not appeal my case, is because the docket length between sentencing and the appellate court in Texas was like 18 months, 18 to 24 months. So this could be years before he even has a chance to be heard on the appeal. Um, and for me, my sentence was 15 months. So I could appeal it after I get out of prison, but then my damage to my life is done at that point because they were not going to let me, especially because I took a plea deal. You waive your right to appeal and all this other stuff. But even if I still decided I wanted to appeal, I would not have stayed out of prison for that period. I would have been in, and I mean that's not going to be the case with Roman, but it's still going to be a couple years. And then what they're going to look for in his case is, again, they're not going to like retry the case on the facts. They're going to look for ways that the prosecution did not follow the law or the judge did not give the right rulings. And thankfully, in this case,
There's a
there
lot
are
of
lots
that.
of those.
Yeah.
But the problem then is that I would say the problem, but the risk of that is that you can either have a judge say it was so bad that the sentence gets vacated, or then it's sent back down to be retried, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, it's up to the prosecution whether or not they want to retry the case, and you go through the whole thing of jurisdiction shopping again, and it all becomes like it's basically Roman Storm versus the United States government part two. Everything we saw now, but maybe the government has a better case at this point, or maybe
Yeah.
Roman screws up and says something on Twitter that he shouldn't say, and that gets included in the case. Like there's a lot of like danger with appeals.
Yeah. Although maybe so, as far as the appeal is concerned, it does sound like, from my knowledge of the case, and again, I didn't do as most of my knowledge is being in a Telegram group with people who are attending in person because I wanted to attend in person, and then just logistics didn't work out. But it does seem like there were a lot of facts of the case that, for some reason or another, the judge forbade them from using, and for even mentioning certain elements of the case. And I know there were some key witnesses that were intimidated. Like, I think Chainalysis was one of them that was set to testify, and they ended up backing out. And the rumor is that they were threatened with charges if they testified. Which, to me, if you consider a just system, that sounds wildly illegal. But I don't know. Unfortunately, it does not
Oh no,
seem to be
it's
that.
it's absolutely wildly illegal, but it's also one of those things that if it wasn't a high profile case, it happens all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
the DOJ is an unassailable white citadel of power. In my case, I was also the victim of something that would be called termed prosecutorial misconduct as well, but it,
Mm-hmm.
according to my lawyer, happens all the time. So my biggest concern, because whenever I caught my case, my children were still in high school. My
Mm-hmm.
youngest was like a freshman. My oldest was like a senior, and so I just didn't want to miss out the rest of my kid's life. That was like my
Yeah,
biggest
of
concern.
course.
And absolutely, if I had to go down, I certainly did not want them to be, with their godparents, right? I love their godparents, but I want them to be with one of us first.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife was named as a co-conspirator on my case because she and I shared a bank account. I basically said to my lawyer, I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to take a deal because, I was looking like the Samurai guys, they were piling on conspiracy charges and the
Mm-hmm.
client's fraud. And I was looking at potentially 30, 40 years in prison. I was like, I mean, I'd fight that if I was a single guy, but I got a family and Iris is not going to want to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
And and she shouldn't have to. She's a volleyball coach, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking any deal in which she's not taken off this case. I just said like that. I don't care what you have to do, lawyer, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then amazingly, I get a plea deal, and my wife gets a letter from from the prosecution saying, "Oh, we found that she's not culpable for these crimes. Go ahead and
So,
sign it."
I mean, that's a little bit of so not to be a little like trying to be pedantic about that, or but so she got the letter before when you got the plea deal offer, or did you had to accept it and then she got the letter?
So it was a little bit of a throw you the idol or throw you the rope thing, but the two
Mm-hmm.
letters arrived within 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah. So
So
theoretically, and obviously things worked out, and I do. If I were in your case, I'd done 100% exactly what you would have done. But it would have been possible for her to sign a letter being like, "Yep, I'm off," and you being like, "No, no deal." And then now she's off the case, but you still get to fight it. Would that have been possible
no,
technically?
no, no, because the way that works is the letter from the prosecution is it doesn't require any affirmative consent from the people being uh,
Mm-hmm.
prosecuted. So the state, the feds saying we're not going to prosecute Iris Hopkins, that comes and that's just a notice to the lawyer, and the lawyer goes, "Oh, great, we're out of the." So she was represented by a separate lawyer as me because of the way these things work, and then. Uh, my lawyer got the one that the plea deal that I had to sign, right?
Mm,
So like I could have reneged on the deal, but that also could have meant they said, "Oh wait, we found new evidence. We're going to go after your wife again," right?
yeah.
So
So they would have had to probably pretend to find new evidence or to have some kind of a reason
right.
to change their mind. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, just being splitting hairs for that thing. So yeah, there's so many different challenges to this thing, and I really hope, obviously, Roman pulls out and gets the appeal. It's at this point, I do think that I'm wondering if the appetite in the crypto community to help him at this point is increased because now it's like a people sadly people don't want to support losers, they want to support winners. And once he kind of won, and now it's just like we get to like beat the feds at like it kind of feels like less like a waste of money, like you send money to a lost cause kind of thing, and it's like we get a return on this investment of judicial precedent. So have you seen any of that kind of wellspring of like I think the Ethereum Foundation gave him another chunk of money after the conviction.
I mean, he does. I will say this: he does have a very expensive defense as far as federal cases go.
Damn, yeah.
However, I mean, and it is. His lawyers are doing a lot of work, so I don't begrudge them the money they're getting. But I did shop around for a lot of lawyers, and I self-financed my own case.
Mm-hmm.
And the obviously I didn't win,
Mm-hmm.
but it was all I wasn't fighting it. I was just trying to get the best deal possible. But I think I told my total spend was like 60, 70,000.
Still,
But like
still a lot of
I do
money.
know from yeah, well, no, I would not want to ever spend that amount again. But the not on something like simple as not going to prison. It seems like that should be free.
Continuing your life after a momentary paperwork disruption. I mean,
Right,
it's
right,
a
right.
giant shakedown right there. Even though it's at least the government's not getting it, just the lawyers getting
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, at least I didn't put it in their pocket. No, they got $200 out of me. That was my restitution. It was the paperwork that I had to sign to get my halfway house.
Ridiculous.
So the no, but all that to say is like it is a very expensive thing and it's a particularly expensive defense that he's mounting compared to the price shopping that I did. However, I do think it's worth it. I do think getting the case decision that he got in this, and I mean, this is unbelievably unprecedented to get any type of favorable ruling out of a jury in a federal court on a technical case
Mm-hmm.
that has to do with finance, with the type of jury pool that he had. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane that this
Yes.
happened. So yeah, it's a great investment if we can buy some precedent here. And also, like, just to say, even though I'm not very risk tolerant, when it comes to these appeals based on what I've seen, like, you brought up a great point. And
Mm-hmm.
jury tampering, witness tampering, sorry, no, not jury tampering, witness tampering is absolutely one of those things that would, if that was what the appeals court decided in Roman's favor on, would be exactly what the type of thing results in a complete dismissal rather than a retrial.
Interesting. Yeah, I that could be that could be kind of the ticket out of it, because there were a couple of witnesses, I think, that backed out, and there was some talk about the threats, and some like wildly crazy things. But yeah, so to be clear, also the jury did not, I guess, unanimously vote to not convict on other charges. They were hung on to charges, as in
Hmm.
a lot of them were for convicting on these other charges, and some of them were not. And it's funny, when they came to the hung jury kind of thing on those charges, the judge initially just instructed them to try again until they get a decision. Like, no, do it again. And like, it's funny how, like, as I mentioned, like with the Telegram group, learning in real time, like, how this system doesn't work. Like, this happened. What's up with that? What happened? Wait, they can just do that? Oh my gosh! Like, just like the layers of education that into how messed up the system is are kind of crazy. But so we got this we got this chance to appeal, and so we go back to the root cause of things. And I know you mentioned this in other shows, but just like the quick recap, why were they able to charge these people, as in Roman and the Rodriguez and the others? Why were they able to charge them at all? It's the 1960 statute, correct?
That's the base layer. That's the easy conviction for anybody in our industry because
Mm-hmm.
up until, well, still we're still in dangerous waters basically because the Clarity Act has not passed. Call your congressman, make sure that happens as soon as Congress goes
Yeah.
back in session.
Senate
Um,
specifically, as far as I know, it's gone to the Senate now, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's expected to pass, but we don't let up until it's done because this is what gives us all a way to breathe a sigh of relief. Until that's
Yes.
done, we're all in the same boat as me and Roman and Samurai Kids, all that stuff. But essentially, 18 USC 1960 says that if you are engaged in any type of activity that involves the changing of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few exclusions. None of them apply to us as crypto people. Uh, then you need to both register as a FinCEN licensed broker dealer, as well as register with your state in compliance to local state laws for licensing. And that's where they can get you because if you, even if you do comply at the federal level, the feds believe that you require licensing at the state if they really want to come after you. And if you're unlicensed at the state, then you can be in violation of your FinCEN registration. However, most states will not license people like us because we don't rise to the level of serious business by the volume that we transact. Especially if you're just buying coffee for your friends, with Dash or whatever, like that's a felony, but it also doesn't rise to the level of licensure. It needs to be somewhere like north of 1.5 million for most states of transaction volume. Um, and then beyond that, so let's assume we take that loophole out of the equation. It's not at all clear if you're doing anything other than OTC, which is like operating a smart contract, that you should have to register with the federal government as at FinCEN, right? Now, let's get even more wrinkly here. We just got the stablecoin or the Genius Act passed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't yet have the Clarity Act passed. And what that legislation does, if my memory serves correctly, is it does define very clearly the difference between stablecoin, security, and commodity, right?
Yeah.
99% of what you would sell OTC or mix in a mixer is going to be classified as a commodity. If you're putting Ethereum in, that's a commodity. That's so if you are under the eyes of the law required to register as an 18 USC 1960 broker dealer, you also under the Genius Act need to register as a commodities broker, which is a
Mm-hmm.
even far more onerous set of regulations. Just
Yeah.
because they look into your business, they look and see what you're doing, and they go, okay, well, you're now okay. You do need to fill out this form. You need to do this. Anytime somebody comes in with over $5,000, you need to register it as a, you know, for cash commodities exchange or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So
Now I'm
the
pretty sure the commodities part was part of the Clarity Act
is it
specifically. It's not
okay?
the Genius one specifically just says what they call a payment stable coin, and then what are non-payment or endogenously collateralized stable coins, and they say those are just to be studied for the next year. We'll figure out how to deal with them later. But the
Okay,
Clarity Act is what has this decentralization test of what is a commodity, therefore CFTC, licensed brokers, whereas security, SEC. So that stuff
yeah,
is
yeah, okay. You know what? You're right. You're right. I'm looking here. Yeah,
yeah.
I study both of these things together, so I get confused sometimes
Yes,
in
and
which act it's in.
I threw in the anti CBDC law, virtue
Yeah,
signal, whatever the hell that is, as well. So that's kind of the crypto week was those three big ones, and then the Genius Act is in law right now. So now we do know stablecoins have to do this in order to be called payment stablecoins that do this stuff. Now the
right.
Clarity stuff, which is the CFTC, as well as the decrim stuff you'd mentioned before, is still pending. Pending the Senate, and then I'm sure if the Senate passes it, the president will probably sign it. And since he's been doing a lot of heavy crypto virtue signaling again. And I have to say, of like all the stuff that Old Teabag has done since he's come the second coming of Old Teabag, it seems like the crypto stuff is the only hardcore, other than tariffs, I would say, which is not a promise I wanted him to keep. It's the one promise he does seem to be kind of hardcore on, where he let Ross out technically day one, within 24 hours of being sworn in, and then called off the SEC cases in like all across the board, and then did some other things. So again, it's not the government is much more than just one dude, but who knows? I mean, if you got there could be a case with enough money behind Roman, it could be made. Like Samourai Wallet, no way would that be something under his sort of purview, right? Is in he wouldn't care really, but it's
I mean, he allegedly, and I just heard this through the grapevine from people who might know. He was asked if he wanted to, take a stand on these recent rash of cases,
mhm.
like Roman and the Samurai case, and he declined. And I can't really say why. He would have definitely gotten some brownie points, but he also did get some backlash from the base on the Ross pardoning. So it's perhaps possible that, when faced with that, he goes, no, man, I got my brownie points that I really don't need more of those. I let the hero out. Um,
Yeah, and it was also like horrendously egregious. It was like, was it 2 life sentences plus 40 years or something crazy like that.
sure.
And so it's not just like some guy talking about Russian money laundering who you throw away for 5 years. It's like it's not the same sizzle from his point of view. It's not like he's not going to go unless, and also like they're crying. As far as I know, like Roman's mother is not like coming
She
crying
hasn't
to
run
him
a
and
10-year campaign for his freedom, that's for sure.
yeah, it's not the same in that case. But because of the smart contract part of it, that which unlike just running a service that you can shut down, the fact that you're like, if we deploy open source software here and it's out of our control and we could go to prison, we're going to do business outside of the US from now on. That's like a much more real threat to the, I guess, capitalization of crypto in the US, and like, I want to be the greatest for crypto, like all that stuff kind of gets thrown by the wayside if people are scared. So maybe if he gets like, if the appeal does not go Roman's way, maybe this is my hopium, right? I'm huffing that hopium here, but maybe some industry leaders who have his ear would be like, "Yo, this precedent isn't good for our business. Can you just get rid of it really quick?"
So if I was lobbying the president, and I know there are people that listen to your show that are lobbying the president, so in this moment I'm speaking directly to them. Uh, that here's the exact case I would make. So the
Mm-hmm.
president has, what is it called? The Liberty Financial, World Liberty Financial. It's his big
Mm-hmm.
crypto
Yeah,
kind of
his
basically
thing.
hedge fund, right? DAO, I think. I think it's he's got like some sort of DAO piece to it as well. But like obviously they're in on crypto, right? They're buying Bitcoin, they're buying Ethereum. I think they got some Solana in there or something. I don't know. They got a bunch of, Trump coin and other things, right? Those things that are not coins, that are tokens,
Mm-hmm.
fall under the same classification of software that Tornado Cash is in. So if you have deployed a non-composable smart contract on Ethereum, or even a composable one, that makes it even more viable and susceptible to this type of thing. You could be prosecuted theoretically. I mean, it's an edge case, but you can be theoretically prosecuted under the same sort of money transmitter rules that Roman and the Tornado Cash guys are being pursued after. Like that, there is no fundamental difference between launching a token that has no composability or even has a little bit of composability, even worse, than running a mixer, because you can use these as instruments that are unlicensed for money transmission. Now, granted, now there's a straighter line between say like something like an AMM and a mixer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more technical people in our audience probably start going, well, actually, and they're right. But you could, I mean, this is not technical people we're talking about in the DOJ. We're talking about people that are trying to go, okay, well, if this is illegal and that's illegal, now I get to go after this whole class of people who have openly, by these new definitions, committed crimes in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as if the president and his cohorts do not have enemies that are willing to construct cases to put him into
Yeah.
prison, right?
Maybe
So,
not during this administration, but as soon as it's over, and
sure,
his family's involved with World Liberty. It's not just him. So he could just be like, I'm going to be 80 something. I'm not going to be around that much longer. The McDonald's has taken its toll, but he has children and grandchildren. And, they could be like, his final reign has really, irritated a lot of people because in some ways, the tariff stuff sucks, and a lot of the ICE stuff has been really kind of nasty, but also he's gone after some like legitimate corruption and stuff on the other side in a way where he definitely did not go after them in his first term. Basically, he could have lots of enemies that are just like, you want your kids to have a happy, healthy life. Not going to happen if we have anything to do with it. And so that's when you'd want to create a precedent. But so we're talking about precedent and the case and stuff. As far as the Clarity Act as passed by the House, right? We'll see what happens in the Senate. Would that make new cases like this not come up, or are we still at risk? Like if Clarity passes and is signed into a law as passed the House, let's just say this starts again. First of all, the Trump administration currently would probably not prosecute. They probably would not. Not definitely. Definitely not definitely, but probably not. But what would the actual facts of the law be different around this that would make it basically really hard to throw them in prison for this? What do you think?
So again, this is I did check this particular section of the law out. It was whatever night this week I went out to go to In-N-Out Burger with the wife. I was looking at it on my phone because somebody on Twitter was, and I actually, it's been part of the Clarity Act for so long. I had to scroll back. I remember it was May 25th is when they announced it.
Mm,
Had been the DeFi or blockchain. It's been alternatively called Regulatory Certainty Act. was added as a rider or a section on the Clarity Act, and they made a big announcement that day. And the wording of that particular act has not changed in the last like 6 years, 4 years, whatever, that Emmer has kept trying to reintroduce this into Congress. And
Mm-hmm.
that basically says if in the act of participating in any crypto activity, if you are not custodying customer funds, you do not qualify to register as a money transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
Which basically it's a specific way of saying things that is an act of decriminalization. It's saying
Mm-hmm.
FinCEN has no jurisdiction here as long as you are not custodying customer funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
A mixer, though, relies on a pool of money sitting in that mixer, right? Like people can deposit liquidity into a mixer. That is not a customer. That is an investor.
Hmm.
That might be regulated under, depending on like the results of how like this ongoing like look see into decentralized activity, like AMMs and other things, that might be regulated as a security or commodity or some other type of instrument. But one thing that we do know for sure is that it is not a FinCEN regulated activity for you to deposit liquidity into an AMM or a mixer. And it is not regulated activity by FinCEN because there is no moment when the smart contract is holding on customer funds. If you send money through a mixer, just like when you send money through an AMM, it's atomic. It's like whenever the block resolves is whenever the outcome happens
Mm-hmm.
from it. It's not going to sit there and just wait around for several blocks. That's not how a smart contract works. It has to.
Yeah.
It's the next step. It's n+1 when the transaction occurs.
Yeah, and I'm not super familiar with the broad extent of uh, of mixers on like Bitcoin and the other things like that. But
Sure.
from my understanding, a lot of these are also kind of non-custodial in that you interact with the app, and then you get immediately someone else's coins to your self custody as you move out. Now there were at the old school tumblers or whatever they call them. You do give some pot of money a bunch of your Bitcoin. Some dude is holding onto those and probably runs away with them, steals them. But if he doesn't, then
Typically, yeah,
then
that's
he'll,
how it usually ended.
yes, it probably runs away with them. If not, he's probably a Fed and you go to prison anyway. But in case all those things aren't true, then they kick you back out these mixed funds, and then the guy running it later goes to prison. So
Right.
that's kind of the way that would work. But so basically, it sounds like under this law, because of the custody thing, at least Roman and Rodriguez, their cases would not really apply anymore, right? Because
Yeah, no, they wouldn't.
the
Right.
money
And
transmission, so money laundering and sanctions evasion and stuff, that's a little bit trickier, maybe. But those charges did not, they didn't stick, or the plea deal was arranged to drop them anyway. But the one that did stick was the unlicensed transmission, and that would no longer apply, right?
correct. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you can't. Yeah, yeah. This the Clarity Act decriminalization specifically applies to the 18 U.S.C. 1960 thing that everyone gets slapped with, and honestly, it's really it's that's the one that most needs to go away because if you look at again, I'm going to plug this little project that I've been working on, the Project 1960, which at some point very soon I will debut publicly. I just have to do some server config stuff to make sure that it doesn't collapse the moment like more than two people view it at once. But the, uh, the way that if you start looking at all those cases, you'll see that 1960, especially in crypto cases, has been used as a way to get people that they think have done a bunch of other stuff. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the Al Capone statute for crypto, right? It was basically used in two different ways. It was used to choke off the public P2P markets like local Bitcoins and Paxful. And it was used to, okay, well, we think this guy, is involved with some hacker group, or we think this guy, stole some money from the dark web or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he also, engaged in a peer-to-peer transaction to get cash from that Bitcoin. So this is what we're going to go after him. We don't have the evidence to win the case with this other thing, but we can definitely get him on 1960 because we can prove he didn't fill out a form, you know, and that's that I mean, it's cynical to say that, but it's also you look at the cases. And I'm just talking about looking at the press releases that the DOJ published, and you're like, this is obvious what you're doing, right? This is not about justice. This is about like, oh, we can't get him on the thing that we think he really did, so we're gonna pile on this thing that nobody loses on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government doesn't need to have an easy button. The government, it should be hard for the government to put people away into a locked box. They should actually have to do the homework, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
I kind of believe that in general for government for almost anything. Like I kind of think that bureaucracy and paperwork should be something government has to deal with, not people. And like I feel like the default is just go free, and then they have to make the case that it's a problem. And there is this sort of I don't know when this started or if it was just in the beginning. This kind of in practice, what I would call like karmic justice, where it's like he doesn't get his just desserts for this thing. Therefore, we're going to act as karma and nail him on something else. So it's like it all comes around. He gets what he deserved, even if he got away with this thing. I think, like at some point, I mean, just on a general thing, you know, I don't necessarily believe in karma like that anyway. I kind of think that like he gets away, and you either get him for that in, or he rolls the dice by being bad again, and the second time he doesn't get, like, that's not karma, that's just probabilities. But like this whole, oh, it's like if this guy, let's just say some random criminal does something awful, and because of a lack of evidence or the case isn't strong enough, or incompetence on the prosecution side, he gets away with it, and then a bus runs over his wife and kids. I don't think that's good at all. Like, I don't think you got him. I don't think karma got
Right.
him. Karma did kind of get him in that case, but I'm not happy with that. It's just, or he, even if it's just on him, like he steps on a rusty nail and something happens and he has to get his leg amputated. It's like, haha, he deserved it. It's like, yeah, but it's still,
Yeah.
you
I
can
mean,
you can
we either believe in
celebrate if you
justice
hate
or we
it.
don't, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're going to be statists, even minarchists, like we got to say, hey, like we need to have a system that's at least designed to work, right? It can't
Mm-hmm.
be just relying on divine providence or prosecutorially easy buttons to make sure that everybody that gets, you know, does something karmically bad gets what they deserve, right? I mean, that's first of all, justice shouldn't be about punitive anyway. Like if you look at the if you look at the history of criminal justice systems, punitive justice is the least effective in terms of. I mean, because nobody's discouraged from committing crimes because they see somebody else get punished for a crime. They think, oh, I can do it better than them. This is
Mm-hmm.
America. We got a competitive spirit. Competition makes better outcomes for consumers, right? So like
Brutal.
we see an idiot criminal go, oh well, I'm not going to make that mistake, but I'm going to go do the crime anyway, right? So it's that's just the nature of how humans think. Restorative justice, other forms of justice system that are not focused on punishment actually reduce recidivism. Our form of justice does not. So like even thinking in the terms of there ought to be karmic justice because that person deserves bad things in their life is wrongheaded from an academic perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. So tell me about this Project 1960 a little bit more in detail, get into the full show, and then we'll kind of
Sure.
move
Yeah.
on.
So again, this is just kind of a labor of love. I call it a bit of a data journalism project. Obviously inspired by personal and recent events. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The I have had the sinking suspicion. So first, I'll say I'm not done with this thing. There's no conclusions that have been reached yet. This is a long
Mm-hmm.
process and will continue for some time. Um, but certain things in the data have been revealed. This is what I would call a data journalism project. What I did, and as many of you know that follow me in your circles, I've been become an AI nut in the last year or two
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what I'm focusing on. And so this is an AI-based data journalism project. I took as seed data every press release that the DOJ has ever published, something like 17,000 press releases, and I used that to I basically created like a AI agent paralegal, that's just sifting through all this data, right? So for
Mm.
humans, it would take who knows how many thousands of hours. Still took thousands of hours with AIs, but they work pretty quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
you can hire them at no marginal cost against each other for pennies on the dollar for what you can do to a human, which is great if you're trying to do something with no budget like I am. So they basically sifted through all these press releases. They threw out the ones that didn't have anything to do with crypto, and of the ones that did have to do with crypto, it checked to see if they had something of a 18 USC 1960 connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the press releases that the government has issued, uh, there have been approximately just shy of 350 18 USC 1960 cases. So once I had that corpus of data done, I started using AI to structure the data because obviously a press release is unstructured data. So I'm starting to pull out things like the well, let me just pull it up here so I can see all the metadata that I'm getting. The like the parties involved in the case, the if there's any victims in the case, what were the exact charges, any financial actions, are there any quotes, any themes, metadata, who was the prosecutor, uh, who were the investigators, if found, what district was it in. So basically now I've got an addressable database that I can search and then start to like see if there are duplication of press releases for the same case, whatnot. So and if you are in the listening audience, any of the martyrs for crypto from the past, you will definitely find yourself in this database. I shared it with a few of you already, and they're like, "Oh, I found my case." So from there, the next stage, and this is the part that's underway right now, is I am pulling in pacer data because what I suspect is the case, and this is
Mm.
the whole reason why I'm going after this. What I suspect is the case is that it's not largely agreed upon, although many people suspect that using 18 USC 1960 from 2015 forward at the federal level was part of Operation Choke Point 2.0.
Yeah.
Some people say it is, some people say it isn't. Uh, as we have investigated the later stages of Operation Choke Point 2.0, Nick Carter being one of the most uh, dedicated uh, investigators on that, they have found that it was a small group of people across several different agencies that were really driving the boat on how people were getting debanked, how organizations were getting debanked in crypto. I suspect that it's the same thing here. And it was based off of a couple of pieces of information I found while researching my personal case. My prosecutor, Sid Modi, not only did he pick and choose cases amongst all the other cases he used, he was the guy in the Northern District of Texas that always took cases related to crypto. Anybody that was tried in Northern District, Texas, for any crypto crime in the last 7 or 8 years, they had him as a prosecutor. Number one. Number two, in the middle of my case, he finally decides to stop being a prosecutor, right towards the end of my case, really, and takes a job as a crypto lobbyist, right? So he was obviously building towards a career goal, but that just makes him a useful idiot for it. Because if you look at the type of things that he was doing, he was really twisting the law in all these cases to really like be against crypto, which means he had an agenda. Further investigation on him as a person determined that up and through his tenure at the U.S. Attorney's Office and afterwards, he has spoken repeatedly at conferences on and attended conferences on how to. These are my words, not theirs. Twist the
Mm-hmm.
law to make it things more difficult for crypto people, right? So if I know that about my guy, I know that he dedicated his like a chunk of his career towards targeting crypto. He can't be the only one, and that is a similar pattern of behavior that we saw in other agencies during Operation Choke Point 2.0. That is the goal of my project.
Mm.
Haven't proven it yet. I think I will once the data comes in. So again, going to zoom out on what's actually happening, I'm downloading all this Pacer data, which is basically PDFs of all the court filings in every one of these cases, and then OCRing them, and then doing similar structure out of the unstructured data to figure out who the parties are involved, what are the types of arguments they're making, And then who are they connected to? Just, let's tree them out. Let's see who's connected to whom, before, during, and after their time with the U.S. Attorney's Office or the FBI.
Sounds good. Well, let's wrap this thing up. What is a good place to contact you or follow your stuff?
So the stealth startup that I've been flogging the last several Twitter spaces that I've been on with you is sort of out of stealth. It's sanctumos.org. So if you want to see what I'm working on, that is the open source, federated and decentralized AI project that I'm working on. And if you just want to talk to me, Rizzn.net, Rizzn.net has all of my social links on it and a little contact form that goes straight to me.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much for being on. I hope you have a good one. And thanks everyone for listening, and best of luck to Roman.
Yes.